Okay, well, it is officially 7:30. So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town Board of the Town of Ossining Legislative Session for Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Shaw,
Present.
Councilmember Meyer,
Present.
Councilmember Wiltshire,
Present.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Present. Okay, so this evening we are going to begin with a public hearing on Local Law 3 of 2020 to amend Chapter 200 of the Town Code zoning to create beekeeping regulations in the town of Ossining. This is reopening our beekeeping legislation, and we are planning to hold open this public hearing as we anticipate a discussion at our November 17th work session that will be all about bees and beekeeping. We will hear from a number of local experts to help answer a few outstanding questions on this legislation. Until that time, though, we do have this public hearing on for this evening. So I open it up to the public to see if anybody's here who would like to comment on our draft proposed local law on beekeeping legislation in the town of Ossining. If you would like to address the board on this, please raise your virtual hand and we will recognize you so that you can have an opportunity to speak. If you have another way of indicating that you're interested in speaking besides that, then you can do that as well. For example, if you needed to unmute for a minute, you could unmute and indicate that you would like to speak. Not hearing anybody that is interested in speaking, I would ask for a motion to adjourn this public hearing to our November 24th legislative session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And if you did come to speak to us about beekeeping and we did that so quickly and you didn't get a chance, there obviously is going to be another opportunity to address the board at the November 24th meeting, but also you should please feel free to send in your comments, and you can send those to dlevenberg@townofossining.com or TC for town council at townofossining.com. We're always happy to read comments into the public record if that's somebody's desire and you don't feel like speaking in person or in Zoom person, if that is a person thing. Okay, so up next, we have another public hearing. This one is on Local Law 4 of 2020 to amend Chapter 136 of the Town Code to allow eating and drinking establishments that are issued a temporary outdoor dining permit to have tents and heaters. So even though we have been having some spring-like weather these past few days, and I can tell you it's getting quite warm on the 3rd floor at 16 Croton Avenue, we are heading into the winter, and we know that our local businesses will be looking to install sides on their tents and heaters very soon so that their patrons can be comfortable when eating outside. Just to refresh everyone's memory, our building inspector joined us for a work session discussion on this topic a few weeks back, and he shared that he feels this legislation will be easily implementable and he can do it, and it can be done safely with collaboration from our local businesses. We started seeing some of these tents and heaters popping up in other neighboring communities, and we don't want our businesses here in town of Ossining to be at a disadvantage, so we thought this would be helpful. Is there anybody here to address the board on this matter tonight? the matter of tents and heaters. If you would like to address the board and are here to do so for this public hearing number 2 of this evening, you can raise your virtual hand, or if that isn't easily accessible to you, by clicking on the participants bar, and then you'll see where it says raise hand at the bottom on the side panel. If you're calling from a phone, if you're on a phone or something like that, you can also just unmute and let us know that you would like to speak, since there is only one person on here that I don't recognize as being a member of our town board or staff. If that person who I don't recognize is interested and can't figure out how to do that, you can unmute. And I am guessing that you're not here for that reason. So because you're not here for that reason, I would ask that I get a motion to, well, I just want to say, in anticipation of not hearing anything substantive this evening that's negative about this amendment, we did prepare a resolution which is on our agenda this evening to consider adopting this legislation. Might I have a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. With that, I am going to ask Bill Garrison, who is the Superintendent of Recreation and Parks for the village and also serves the town. If you could, I think we may have a Zoom on here, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. It's possible. I'm telling you, Victoria, to be aware.
I'm sorry. What did you? I missed.
We
what
might
you
have
said.
a Zoom bot on. Not 100% sure.
Okay. I'll keep an eye on the situation.
Okay. To mute, yeah, if necessary. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so with that, anyway, as I was saying, we have Bill Garrison here this evening, and he is going to give us an update from our recreation department, and we're looking forward to hearing it because we know you've been very busy lately dealing with all sorts of things in recreation. So if you would be so kind as to please share an update, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I guess the big news is that we actually were informed yesterday we had our first report of a patron at the community center that tested positive with COVID. We have been open since July, and this is the first time this has happened. It's probably not going to be the last time, but we did have a swimmer that had identified that she had tested positive, and we were able to go back through our protocols and determine when they came to the community center. We were able to go back and identify all the other people who were in those sessions. We reached out to them, informed them that they may have been exposed to the coronavirus. We contacted the Westchester County Health Department and reported the case to them as well. So we are working with them as we go through this. The pool is still open. One of our protocols that we do is we clean the pool and the locker room after every swim session. So this would be something that if there was a positive case anywhere, one of the first protocols is to do a deep cleaning. However, we do that after every session anyway, so we were okay with that. We did have some staff who, out of the abundance of caution, who did screen this person as they came into the community center. We have them home right now, and we're awaiting results on their test results. But right now, that's the only case that we have, and we're moving forward with the people that were in those swim sessions along with this person. They need to. They're not allowed to come back into the building until after 14 days. So as that date gets closer, those people will be coming back in. We went back as far as 2 weeks. We went back to October 26th, So people that were in the pool with this person on October 26th and 27th, actually their 2 weeks quarantine is up starting tomorrow and Thursday. So as those days go by, more and more people will be allowed back into the pool. Programming overall, unfortunately, because of the COVID virus, it's been very slow. We've had very limited registration. We've had a number of people who have signed up for programs who have subsequently asked for refunds because of the increased numbers, not feeling comfortable being in a program or having their children be in programs. So we are honoring those requests for full refunds for people. We are prorating the refunds if people have come to one or two of the programs and then they decide that this is not working out for them or for their child, then we will prorate those refunds back to them. With the increased numbers, we are really rethinking how we're going to do programming for our winter session. Typically, we would be opening up our winter registration in a few weeks and with programs starting in January, but we have to kind of rethink that. Our after school program, which typically has 120 kids, we only have about 15 kids. So this is definitely affecting revenue, and we're trying to figure out what we can do to offer some opportunities for recreation for people of all ages as we go through this. One positive thing is disc golf. And I know we had talked about this before. We did get some interest from people in the community who were interested in having a disc golf course at one of our parks. We were contacted by the Westchester, let me find it here, Westchester Disc Golf Enthusiasts. It's actually an organization that people belong to, and they play disc golf. There's a course at FDR, and that's probably one of the most local ones. And disc golf has been around for a long time, but it's even got more and more popular because of COVID. It's a great activity to do outdoors, get a little bit of exercise while you social distance. We went ahead and we purchased some portable disc golf, it's called baskets. These are like catching baskets. They're like the golf holes, along with 20 sets of disc golf. And what we thought was we would purchase this portable where we could set up in any one of the parks and see what the interest is in the community, see if people or something that they want to do. We can move these portables around to any of the parks. We can also use them during summer camp. And the Westchester Disc Golf Enthusiasts have offered to help us kind of plan out these courses. And they have a goal of they would really like to get a permanent course up in Cedar Lane Park. So that's something that we can take a look at. So that's we should be getting those baskets in, these disc baskets in within a couple of weeks. So maybe we'd be able to get a little bit out, try this out a little bit in the next few weeks before it gets too cold. If not, we'd certainly be bringing it out again in the springtime. So that's really what I have to report at this time. Unfortunately, it's not a lot. I think given the times, I wish it would be more. We typically have a lot going on right now, like our basketball programs. Basketball is one of the sports that is not permitted. If you've followed the news recently, it looks like New York State is not going to be having indoor varsity or indoor high school sports being offered. So we will follow those guidelines as well. We can do basketball clinics, volleyball clinics, soccer clinics inside our gym. But that's really going to depend on if people feel comfortable coming out and registering for these programs, and that's yet to be seen. Does anyone have any questions?
That was going to be my question. Does anybody have any questions? No, I mean, I think with disc golf sounds really kind of exciting. Councilwoman Feldman had brought it to our attention. I think, was it in our budget meetings? I can't remember exactly when we discussed it last year. But it sounds exciting, and it does sound like a great program for in this difficult time. And I think I'd mentioned that I had seen a disc golf course up in Massachusetts, near where my mother-in-law lives a year and a half ago or so. And it seems like a very
Invasive.
invasive. I was going to say invasive, but I thought maybe that wasn't the right word. But yeah, like it doesn't have a lot of heavy lifts to keep it up. Because I mean, it was like in the woods, leaves everywhere. You know, I don't know exactly if I was there in the season when I happened to be hiking around, but you know, it seems like it doesn't have a big impact on the environment. For one thing, like you don't really have to do a heck of a lot of clearing, and some of the obstacles that are just naturally occurring in the woods are good things. You know, it's like the sand trap of the disc golf world. You know, it just seems like a good use of some of our underutilized open spaces in our parks that might also help, I don't know, dare I say, bring some revenue back in at the same time as providing pleasurable and safe activities to people. So very interesting and cool. So we'll look forward to the temporary disc golf whatever, and then we can take it from there, I guess, is the next thing. I think Councilwoman Feldman said that the organization was interested in maybe helping us raise the money that would be needed to do a full-blown installation, which I think you quoted at like $10,000 or something like that. Councilwoman Feldman, is that right? And that they would help us raise half of it, or maybe I'm doubling it. I don't remember. Is that?
Yeah, no, they you know, they said it should cost around 10,000, and they said they, you know, would be able to help us raise some of it. I think they put together a proposal which is supposed to go to the Rec Advisory Board, and then I guess come back to us after the Rec Advisory Board takes a look at it. Bill, did you get anything from them?
I do have their proposal, and it'll be on the agenda this month. We don't have a date for that Rec Advisory Board meeting yet, but we will. I believe the proposal, what they had estimated, it would be around $8,000 to do the course, and that they would, you know, they're not able to provide any funds towards that, but they would help with the technical and building the course, which there's really not a lot, as Supervisor Levenberg stated, there's really not a lot to it. It's just more kind of planning it out and having the launch pads or the tee areas, which can range from anywhere from a grass area to a concrete or paved spot to do. So it's definitely something that's doable. I'm interested to see what the interest is going to be once we put this out into the parks on a temporary basis, because it is something that everybody can do of all ages. So it's a really good idea.
Yeah, I like that it's distance too. So
yeah,
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, just have to make sure that we don't hit anybody in the dog park with the Frisbee, or I'll stay away from the dog park. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So are there any other questions or comments? Councilwoman Shaw, you are our RAB liaison, and I know that you see Mr. Garrison much more frequently than we. Is there anything else that you want to ask, or maybe, you know, have brought up or discuss?
I mean, in budget season, and we went over some of the park stuff, and we have projects planned for the next few years, and I'm hoping that we can get at least some of them done, because I know many of them are overdue. So it's, for me, it's always like a budget, since we're in budget season, that kind of talk, but we'll see what happens. It's a very tricky year.
It is indeed, but we are hoping that we can take advantage of some of those very, very low interest rates to borrow and plan for infrastructure improvements to our parks and also to our roads. So that's the hope and the prayer, that we can plan smartly and budget smartly and borrow smartly. Okay, so with that, anybody else? Councilman Wiltshire, Councilman Meyer, any questions for Mr. Garrison?
No, I'm fine.
All right. No? Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening. And with that, we will hopefully hear good news soon that everybody's cleared to go back into the pool. And we'll be in touch with you soon.
Great. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too.
Take care.
All right, so up next, I have a whole bunch of announcements. And the first one, of course, is that tomorrow is Veterans Day. We are very proud to honor our veterans this year, though many of our traditional ceremonies, unfortunately, have had to adjust to health guidelines. Our annual ceremony this year will be live streamed to avoid any large gatherings and will appear on the Town and Village of Ossinin's Facebook pages, fingers crossed that we get all our technology right. Feel free to share it with friends and family who normally like to participate or observe in person. We thank Honorable Michael G. O'Connor, who continues to lead the Ossining Centralized Committee of Organized War Veterans in putting together these ceremonies, and he's put together something simple but impactful for tomorrow. Other ways to honor our veterans include such things as discounts and special deals, which many stores offer for veterans, military families, or military spouses, which I think are part of military families. Militarybenefits.info has a comprehensive list of deals, sales, and freebies that are available to our service members, including reduced price tickets to museums, free coffee from 7-Eleven or Dunkin' Donuts, or free meals from Applebee's. Starbucks is offering a free 12-ounce hot brewed coffee tomorrow, and for every cup of hot brewed coffee sold, they will donate 25 cents to support the mental health of military communities. And we are very, very grateful to our servicemen and women and all of our veterans for their service to our country to protect our freedoms, which we know now more than ever before are absolutely critical to our democracy. As a reminder, town offices will also be closed tomorrow, Wednesday, November 11th, in observance of Veterans Day. Today is the first day of Hudson Valley Restaurant Week. As we all know, the chilly weather tends to bring a slower season for local businesses, as we've just discussed. If you're able to make hashtag Takeout Tuesday part of your weekly routine, you can help support the local economy and get a great meal out of it at the same time. Today on our social media pages, we shared a list of the many restaurants in the Village of Briarcliff, Village of Ossining, and unincorporated town. So if you have a favorite meal or a restaurant, be sure to promote them this week, share their menu on Facebook, tag them on Twitter with a picture of your favorite meal, or call ahead to place an order. These local businesses have had a rough year, as we all know, and every bit of support we can offer goes a long way. Last week, I announced that the town is recognizing Saturday, November 28th as Small Business Saturday. Where do I have my fancy proclamation? Remember this last week? Well, we're doing it every week until we get there. Chain stores across the country are offering Black Friday deals throughout the month. Why not do your part to make Small Business Saturday last the whole month too? Our small businesses need your support now more than ever before. Many small businesses that rely heavily on holiday traffic are going to be struggling to make ends meet this year. Get a kickstart on your holiday shopping by supporting a small business, and many of these businesses are offering online shopping, home delivery, or curbside pickup, so you do not need to worry about sacrificing COVID protocols to support a small business. This past weekend, news broke about the results of the general election. This has been a very anxiety-producing time for the country as ballots were counted and lawsuits were filed. It's important for us to remember we are all part of one nation and we are neighbors. There are several levels of government between the President of the United States and your local elected officials, and all work together based on your involvement. Years that are not associated with presidential elections often face a decrease in political interest, meaning that fewer people vote, attend meetings, and volunteer their time. I encourage everyone to remain engaged and aware. There are always so many issues we need to address here in our community and programs that need our attention. I am thankful that so many of our residents are participating in the democratic process, and I encourage you to continue to do so. We saw record numbers of voters turning out at the polls, mostly for early voting, but we're just so excited about that. Other ways you can participate in your local government include joining one of our many volunteer boards in the town of Ossining. We just posted a reminder that we are looking for volunteers to join these boards and committees, specifically the Recreation Advisory Board, which we just discussed, Zoning Board of Appeals, the Board of Assessment Review, and Planning Board. Interested applicants can submit a resume or similar description of your professional educational, and volunteer background with a cover letter detailing why you would like to get involved in the Austining community in this role. Send all that to Victoria Caffarelli in the supervisor's office at vcaffarelli@townofaustining.com. That's CAFARELLI, if you didn't know how to spell Caffarelli. More detail is available on the town's website, including meeting times that volunteers would need to commit to and more. Many of my town board colleagues and I served in volunteer capacities as board or committee members in the past, and I think we all agree that it is an extremely rewarding experience and a great way to learn more about local government. We are accepting applications for these boards through Friday, December 11th, so please throw your hat in the ring. COVID-19 cases are rapidly rising across the country. With Thanksgiving just 16 days away, we need to commit to plans with health and safety in mind. The uptick we are experiencing right now can be tied to Halloween parties, so we are living the consequences of a lack of vigilance. You cannot wear a mask while you eat, which makes holiday traditions with extended families very dangerous. And we just heard from the governor about this today. The CDC advises that anyone who has high-risk individuals in their family should avoid gathering for holidays. Furthermore, consider getting a test or quarantining for 2 weeks after the holiday to avoid spreading coronavirus to essential workers, co-workers, or people in vulnerable populations. Emergency service workers take time away from their families every year to work on the holidays. They staff our fire trucks, our police stations, hospitals, and ambulances, despite the risks to themselves. We really do not want to ask them to take on even more risk. This year has been incredibly difficult for essential workers and their families. By staying home, you help protect them. Before I begin to wrap up my announcements, I want to remind everyone that the equity survey created by the Community Equity Task Force is open to all Town of Austining residents until November 13th. That's this Friday, and that includes both Austinings and Briarcliff. You can find a link to the survey on the Town of Austining Facebook page or in my Friday Supervisors Update. The survey is going to be used to drive the work of the Community Equity Task Force to move our community closer to equity across all facets of our community. You can request a copy of the survey or to join the task force by emailing me at dlevenberg, Levenberg, @townofaustining.com. You can also email me to request hard copies for yourself or for distribution through a business or organization. Please feel free to share it widely with your Austining and Briarcliff circles. We are going to continue sharing the survey through our Facebook and Instagram accounts as well until the survey closes this Friday. And lastly, please mark your calendars for Thursday, November 19th. That's our first public engagement session for the town's comprehensive plan. Many residents may not know what a comprehensive plan is or why it is so important. Comp plans are used by municipalities to sketch out plans for the future, jumping ahead in our minds 10 years or more to appropriately plan and budget for changes. Beginning at 7 p.m. via Zoom on the 19th, we will host a workshop with residents to identify why you initially chose to live here, what you love about the town, what you might wish was different. Creating our comp plan will be a process that stretches throughout most of 2021, but these first steps help us lay the groundwork. You can sign up for updates specifically on the comprehensive plan at our website by visiting www.townofaustining.com/CMS/comprehensive-plan-2020. And that's when I said CMS, it's S as in Sam. C, M as in Mary, S as in Sam. That is it for my announcements. Do any of my board colleagues have any other announcements this evening? And see heads shaking in the no direction, I'm going to move to liaison reports. And hearing none. All right, and I want to wait a second just to make sure. I think we're going to move into public comment on agenda items only. So if there's anything on the agenda for our regular meeting, not our public hearings, so any of our board resolutions, if anybody has any comments on any of our resolutions or anything else that's in the rest of the public meeting, please raise your hand and we will recognize you. Raise your virtual hand.
How do you raise your hand?
Okay, so you click on the participant screen, but we'll recognize you. We'll recognize you, David Lyons, if you'd like to say something. So that's fine. We accept. Would you like to say
Yes,
something? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find how to. So as far as the public hearing on the chapter, is that closed?
No, it
Did I
is not
miss this?
closed. You did miss it. We talked about it at the beginning. We did not close the public hearing. We have left it open. We'll have another opportunity for the public to speak on it at our November 24th legislative session. But in between then and now, or now and then, November 17th, we will have a work session. We're inviting, if we have local beekeepers, we're inviting them to talk with us a little bit at that work session so that we can get some input from beekeepers about some of the details that have been incorporated into the draft local law. So if you might be one of the people who has a beekeeper, for example, then that might be an opportunity for them to weigh in a little bit on what might be their thoughts on the draft legislation.
Okay, that would be great. Can I just ask one or put in one comment that the legislation proposed is very residential centric?
So this is actually, thank you. I'm sorry, but because it's not,
okay.
If you want, I think what you
Okay.
should do is just put those comments in writing and submit them to me and or the town council. You can send it to tc@townofossining.com, which is the town council, or to my email address, David. I know you have that. And you can just send those comments, which are helpful, and we can either read them into the public record for the next time. But again, the public hearings are always right at the very, 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 very start of, they come before any other item. So right at 7:30, we say the pledge, and then we launch into public hearing. So for the next
my apologies for being late.
That's okay. The next time round, if you want, you can send it to us in writing, your thoughts and comments, and then we will address them as we continue through the process. Okay?
And so on the 17th?
The 17th is our work session. That's just for the beekeeper.
Okay. So
and then
just one.
24th is the public hearing.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Is there
Perfect. Great. So I will see you next week with my beekeeper.
Thank you. Okay. So
Thanks.
the next, I just want to remind everybody in the public that if you want to comment on any of the board resolutions on our agenda for this evening, you can raise your hand by clicking on the participants screen at the bottom, or the participants little icon at the bottom of the screen. And then it'll open up a little window on the side. And at the bottom of that window, it'll say invite, mute me, or raise hand. And you click on raise hand and a little virtual hand pops up next to your name, and then we will recognize you. I'm going to give that another minute to see if anybody else would like to be recognized on any of the agenda items. And seeing and hearing nobody, we are going to move on into our board resolutions. Martha Quitasaka, our deputy clerk, would you please take us through the resolutions?
Okay. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, October 27th, 2020. Resolved that the town board, the town of Austin, hereby approves October 27th, 2020 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Approval of voucher detail report. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby approves the voucher detail report dated November 10th, 2020 in the amount of $174,134.04.
That motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? I'm sorry, we didn't have a lot to talk about. We have a very small voucher detail report.
Can I just, sorry, there was actually a small error in the number that Martha just read. It's that $174,135.04.
Oh, I did not hear her that she read it wrong. Okay, so that is the correct version that is actually on our agenda. So I don't think do I need to do another motion? No. Okay. That's great. Thank you for the clarification. So anyway, as I mentioned, it's a small voucher detail report. We anticipate next one being a lot bigger. We don't have any of our IMAs in this or healthcare. Okay.
Calling for a public hearing, 2021 preliminary budget. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby calls for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, November 24th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. via video conferencing in accordance with the governor's executive orders 202.1 and 202.15 as subsequently extended in the matter of the 2021 preliminary budget for the town of Austin.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
So we are well into the 2021 budget season, which is always very exciting as we set the stage for what is coming up next year. And of course, also challenging this year, as we can imagine, because we don't know what's coming up exactly next year. Our budget officer, Victoria Caffarelli, will be delivering a presentation at our next work session on some of the highlights of the 2021 budget. For those municipal budgeting enthusiasts, yes, I do count myself among those. You can review the 2021 tentative budget in detail on the town's website. And for those of you who prefer not to read a nearly 200-page document, I'll give you a short preview. We are looking at tax rate decreases across all but one fund, our sewer fund, which has less than 1/10 of a percentage point tax rate increase. We're proud to be once again submitting a tax cap compliant budget for the board's approval, but we are cautiously optimistic going into 2021 because due to COVID, there is a lot of uncertainty about what the future holds. Thank you again to Victoria, especially also to our comptroller Dale Brennan and our deputy comptroller Liz Nakari. This is her first time round, for all of their hard work guiding us through a budgeting cycle like no other. And with that, is there any other comments? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? And just to refresh your memory after my lengthy comment, we were not voting on the budget, just calling for the public hearing. That was it. Okay.
Stipulation of agreement. Teamsters, be it so resolved that upon the recommendation of the town supervisor, the stipulation of agreement between the town, IBT Local 456, and Charles Bounty Jr. is hereby ratified and approved.
Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Approval of intermunicipal agreement, residential food scrap transportation and disposal program. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin authorizes the supervisor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County / Refuse Disposal District Number 1 for the town to participate in the residential food scrap transportation and disposal program.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We are very much looking forward to partnering with the county to significantly reduce the carting costs associated with our relatively still new food scraps recycling program. Thanks to this shared service now provided by the county, our monthly carting fees are likely to decrease by about 75%. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Wonderful.
Christy, for this next resolution, do you just want me to read the whole thing? Okay. Resolution Local Law Number 3 of 2020, amendment to Town Code regarding temporary outdoor dining permits. Whereas in light of the COVID-19 pandemic and the restrictions related to social distancing and decreasing maximum capacity of indoor spaces in an effort to reduce the risk of spread of the virus, the Town Board adopted a Local Law Number 1 of 2020 to establish a temporary outdoor dining permit process for fully enclosed eating and drinking establishments and eating and drinking establishment uses. And whereas the local law originally prohibited enclosed tents, but as the weather becomes cooler, the restrictions on restaurant occupancy remain in place with no indication of being relaxed in the near future, the town board recognizes that allowing enclosed tents and heating devices on a temporary basis and with proper safety protocols in place will create additional seating in order to allow these establishments to serve their patrons in a safe environment and also generate the level of business necessary to remain viable. And whereas the town board also recognizes that other nearby municipalities are allowing enclosed tents, and if the town does not do so also, it could hurt local businesses as diners will instead patronize the establishments that do provide this option. And whereas the town board held a duly noticed public hearing at its regular meetings on Tuesday, October 27th, 2020, and November 10th, 2020, via video conferencing in accordance with the governor's executive orders 202.1 and 202.15, and subsequently extended, and members of the public having the opportunity to attend and be heard, the public hearing was closed on November 10th, 2020, and whereas said local law has been on the desk of the members of the town board of the town of Austin for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday, prior to the adoption of this resolution, and now therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby adopts a negative declaration determining this action does not have the potential to have any significant adverse environmental impacts as the local law amends the existing temporary outdoor dining permit local law to allow for tents and heaters in appropriate circumstances and with appropriate oversight by the building inspector in order to provide an atmosphere with appropriate social distancing for patrons of these establishments to dine during the colder months. And be it further resolved, the town board, after due deliberation, finds that it is in the best interest of the town to adopt the local law, and the town board hereby adopts local law number 3 of 2020 entitled Amendment to the Town Code regarding temporary outdoor dining permits. And be it further resolved, the town clerk is directed to enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting into the local law book for the town of Austin, and to publish said minutes in a newspaper published in the town, if any, or in such newspaper published in the county in which such town may be located, having a circulation in such town. And affidavits of said publication shall be filed with the town clerk, and to file a copy of said local law with the Secretary of State of New York.
Whew. That was a good
Good
one.
job.
Thank you very much. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Well, this resolution, in its many words, speaks for itself, and we are happy to provide this assistance to our local businesses during this difficult time. Hopefully the winter stays mild. I do think that our deputy clerk read the word colder instead of cooler. We only wanted to get cooler, not colder. But if it doesn't stay mild, our restaurants will continue outdoor dining, and a few slight modifications will hopefully help them to have their patrons be comfortable throughout the winter months. I'm only joking, Rick. You don't have to look for it. It's just don't worry. So do I
Roll call.
roll call vote. Thank you. Roll call. Go ahead.
Okay. Councilmember Wiltshire,
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw,
Yes.
Councilmember Feldman,
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer,
Yes.
Supervisor Lavenberg,
Aye. Or yes, whichever you prefer.
Okay, moving on. Public hearing on local law to amend zoning code and zoning map regarding solar energy systems. Whereas by joint application dated April 21st, 2020, Equity New York Second LLC, a system owner and applicant, and Catholic Foreign Mission Society of America Incorporated as property owner, applied to the town board to install and operate a solar energy system, the proposed project, on the property located at 75 Ryder Road, Austin, New York, the property. And whereas the proposed project is a Tier 3 solar energy system as defined in Zoning Code 200-31.3, which would require the town board to adopt a local law to amend the town zoning map to include the property in the Tier 3 solar energy system floating zone. And whereas the applicants are also seeking a zone text amendment to increase the maximum permitted height of the Tier 3 canopy solar energy systems from 15 feet to 25 feet to allow sufficient clearance for fire trucks and other emergency vehicles. And whereas should the town board grant the above referenced amendments to the zoning code's text and the zoning map, the project will also require site plan approval and a conditional use permit from the town of Austin Planning Board. And whereas the applicant previously appeared before the town board at multiple work sessions to discuss the proposed project and provide additional information to the town board. And whereas the planning board served as lead agency for a coordinated review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and at its meeting on October 21st, 2020, the planning board adopted a negative declaration finding the proposed project does not have the potential for any significant adverse environmental impacts. And whereas the planning board also provided the town board with a recommendation in accordance with zoning code 200-52, including recommending that the floating zone be applied to the property, but that the maximum heights for canopy solar energy systems be 23 feet instead of the applicant's proposed 25 feet. And now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held on November 24th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. video conferencing in accordance with the governor's executive orders 2.1 and 2.15, as subsequently extended to consider the applicant's proposed amendments to the zoning code text and the zoning map with respect to the proposed project. And be it further resolved, the town board hereby directs the town clerk to provide notice of said public hearing as required by law.
Do you have a motion?
So
So moved.
Second.
Second.
So earlier this summer, the town board heard from Ecogy regarding their proposal for a solar canopy system at Mary Knoll Fathers and Brothers at 75 Ryder Road. The application sounded interesting, so the town board referred it to the planning board. Now that the planning board is close to finalizing its site plan review, one of the items left is for the town board to approve amendments to the zoning code's text and zoning map with respect to this project. We heard from Ecogy at a work session last week, and we look forward to holding the public hearing later this month to move this project closer to the finish line. Any other comments from our council? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Exciting.
Okay, resolution of support Austining 100 chapter of Cure 100. Whereas in recognition of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change recommendation that we limit global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels in order to, among other things, make adaptation less difficult, lessen the suffering of negative impacts on the intensity and frequency of extreme events, resources, ecosystems, biodiversity, food security, and municipalities large and small worldwide. Whereas in support of the part our community must play toward New York State's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, CLCPA of 2019, which limits statewide greenhouse gas emissions to 40% of 1990 levels by 2030 and 85% by 2050, 70% renewable electricity by 2030, and 100% zero emissions electricity by 2040. And now therefore be it resolved, the town supports Green Austining's creation of an Austining 100 chapter of Cure 100 Communities United to reduce emissions 100%, which pairs community action with data about carbon emissions by zip code and quantifies community-wide emissions by household, individual emissions by sectors, and offers guidance for carbon emission reduction with the goal of reducing the overall carbon footprint by at least 5% per year through 2040.
A motion?
So moved.
Second.
Last week, we heard from Green Austin Chair Susie Ross on this very important initiative. We know that climate change is one of the biggest crises facing our world today, and it is only through collective action that we will reach the United Nations' critical goals of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Austining 100 chapter of Cure 100, which stands for Communities United to Reduce Emissions, as mentioned in the resolution, will bring the effort of reducing carbon emissions to the local level and educate the community on simple steps we can all take to incrementally reduce our carbon emissions. If you missed our work session from last week, I encourage you to watch the video for Susie's presentation. It was incredibly eye-opening and very informative. And by joining Cure 100, we will have more and more opportunities to bring the much needed education to the public so we can all contribute to our reduced carbon footprint. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Okay. Approval of 37 and 41 Corton Dam Road subdivision sewer and water main application agreement. Whereas the town has maintained the sewer main and water main that services 37 and 41 Corton Dam Road, the property, for over 30 years. And whereas the owner of the property received subdivision approval from the planning board for a 4-lot subdivision to create 2 new residential lots. And as part of said approval, the property owner made improvements to the sewer main and water main, and now therefore be it resolved, the town supervisor is hereby authorized to execute application to the Westchester County Department of Health for approval of the improvements to the sewer main and water main, and be it further resolved, the town supervisor is hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with the property owners to memorialize the town's maintenance of the sewer main and water main and obtain the necessary easements to assess them when necessary.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed?
Moving on to correspondence to be received and filed. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austin hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of October 2020. Dale Cemetery, GE Helicopter, Town Highway, Tax Receiver's Office, Town Clerk's Office, and Town Supervisor's Office.
Do I have a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, and so next up we have visitor recognition on any topic whatsoever. Is there anybody here to address the board on any topic whatsoever? You can raise your virtual hand again by going to the participants screen, opening it up, and looking over to that little bar on the right, and all the way at the bottom it says raise hand. If not, you can just say something. And hearing nothing, we're going to move to adjourn. Might I have a motion to adjourn to executive session for personnel, advice of counsel, and contracts?
So
So
moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, November 17th. And you heard we're going to be talking a lot about bees. That starts at 7:30 p.m. and still via Zoom. Remember, our comprehensive plan meeting, our public engagement session will also be next week on Thursday, November 19th, starting at 7 p.m. If you cannot join us live, but you want to know what was discussed, keep in mind that all of our town meetings are uploaded to the town Facebook and YouTube pages the morning after they air live. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Enjoy Veterans Day tomorrow. Please do thank veterans, our servicemen and women, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.